Good evening. Good to see so many familiar faces as well as some new friends. First of all, my name is Melvin Tennant. I'm with Meet Minneapolis, our Convention and Visitors Association. And to assure you, I'm just the warm-up act. You know, I tend to be the warm-up act a lot to the star. I kind of feel like Destiny's Child to Beyonce. So that's kind of how I feel tonight. But liquid death. Liquid death. But I'm here to just provide a couple of welcome remarks. On behalf of Meet Minneapolis and Minneapolis Public Radio, we want to welcome you to Community Conversation in Focus, Stories Behind the Storefront. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening. And we're very pleased to be able to host this community conversation in person right here at Hook and Ladder. And you know, it wasn't that long ago that we would not have been able to do that in person. Isn't it great to be able to meet in person? How about it? We're meeting in person. And you know, we're thrilled to see you all in this room because we're united by a common purpose, and that is to create an inclusive recovery along the Lake Street corridor. And you know, this conversation led by NPR and host Angela Davis, whom I'll introduce formally in just a moment, will highlight the voices of BIPOC business owners who don't often hear their stories in the mainstream media. So we thank you for that. You know, by sharing their powerful stories, Meet Minneapolis and NPR, we really aim to change the problematic racial and community narratives about Lake Street, Minneapolis, and the entire region. I think that's very important. We talk a lot about the reputation that is a lot of people, the opinions that people have about our regions. We want to be able to change those. You know, this program does mark a new relationship that Meet Minneapolis has with NPR, and we're very, very proud to build up on that relationship. We're looking forward to doing more things in the future, if that's okay with you, ma'am. Sure. Okay, I just want to make sure. But before we get started, I'd like to express our appreciation, again, for those who helped make this event a success. We've got several people that were very much important to making this happen. Obviously, Hook and Ladder, so thank you for hosting us. Yeah. Did anybody enjoy some of that rectangle pizza? Thank you for that. And they were actually named by Good Morning America as the United States of Pizza. That's a big honor. And of course, Loncheria Amigos for providing the delicious food for the pre-show reception. How about it for our friends who provided that for us? And we'd like to thank you as well for your generosity in donating food items for Sabathani Community Center. We worked with them because we know all the great work they do in South Minneapolis. In fact, I understand that Sabathani distributes more than 45,000 pounds of food monthly to residents of South Minneapolis. So I think that is just outstanding, absolutely. Before I hand it off to Angela, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on indigenous land. Meet Minneapolis and NPR acknowledge and honor the Dakota Ayote, who are the original stewards of this magnificent land and the vibrant waterways of Minneapolis. The Dakota, as well as Ojibwe and other indigenous people, cared for this land, its lakes, and the Mississippi River for thousands of years before Europeans got here. So today this place continues to hold significant spiritual and cultural importance for the strong and resilient and growing indigenous community in Minneapolis and in Minnesota. So this acknowledgement is just the start of our journey as we continue to strive to tell those rich and diverse stories of Minneapolis. One last thing I want to do in terms of a thank you, I want to thank all the Meet Minneapolis team members that are here, but particularly the members of our team who are part of our Meet Minneapolis Legacy Project, which has been leading a lot of the efforts that we have undertaken over the last few years in terms of social justice. So thank you to the MMLP and to the Meet Minneapolis team. So now, you never thought the warm-up act would go this long, but it's now that time. It's now that time for me to have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Angela Davis, who's the host of NPR News with Angela Davis, which is a weekday talk show at 9 a.m. And before joining NPR News, Angela anchored morning and evening newscasts at WCCO TV and at KSTP in St. Paul. She's been honored with many, many awards, including 5 regional Emmy Awards. That is outstanding for anchoring and for breaking news coverage. Her career also included roles in Atlanta at CNN, but also at local stations in Washington, D.C., Lexington, Kentucky, and in Dallas, Texas. So now, please join me in welcoming Angela Davis.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Davis, and I am thrilled to welcome you to another Live in Focus discussion that we are doing out in community. Again, so great to see everybody's faces tonight. Good to be able to meet so many of you as well. Yes, let everybody hear how excited you are to be here. Right now, I am at Hook and Ladder Theater and Lounge in Minneapolis to discuss the recovery of Lake Street. As you all likely remember, with vivid detail, I'm sure, Lake Street was ground zero 3 years ago for the racial uprising that spread around the world after the murder of George Floyd. In fact, the burned out 3rd Precinct is literally right next door. But that is just, that's just one of the signs that remains, one of the markers that reminds us of the destruction that swept Lake Street back in 2020. Today, many businesses have reopened, people are back, and the community, it feels strong. But we also know that some businesses closed and that this recovery process has not been without a lot of challenges. And that's what we're going to discuss tonight, the challenges and the solutions that we are seeing. We will hear from business owners along Lake Street, as well as some of the community groups that jumped in to get this corridor back to life. Let me introduce you to our guests who are here on the stage with me. So first, we are going to meet 2 business owners. Here on the end, this is Manny Gonzalez. And Manny is a pillar of the Lake Street business community. He and his sister, Victoria, co-own Manny's Tortas in the Midtown Global Market. Oh, somebody's been there, Manny. I don't want to give away too much of his story, but I am excited to have him share his story. Welcome to In Focus, Manny.
Thank you so much,
Nice
Angela.
to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Next to Manny is Elias Uso. Elias owns Seward Pharmacy on East Lake Street. He has an amazing story as well. So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Elias.
Thank you, Angela.
And we also have 2 people who represent groups that are heavily invested in Lake Street's inclusive recovery. Yusra Muhammad is here, and Yusra is a business advisor at the Lake Street Council, and that is a group that has really changed dramatically since 2020. Welcome to In Focus, Yusra.
Thank you for having me.
And here we have Andy Hessness. Andy is the executive director of Redesign, and that is a community development corporation for the greater Longfellow area, which includes East Lake Street. Hi, Andy. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hi. Well, I, of course, would like to start with the business owners. So, Manny, you've been on Lake Street for a long time, but tell us a little bit about how Manny's Tortas came to be. How did you get started here in Minneapolis?
Okay. First, gracias por venir al sur de Minneapolis. Thank you for coming to South Minneapolis. Salud. A little Mexican water. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I came in 1982. And the first place I came, it was Lake and Pleasant Avenue. I live in that apartment, but what loves is the whole avenue in that time, Lake Street. I went to Hamline University to study English. I studied hotel administration and culinary school in Mexico City. But I need the English to come back to Mexico. I want to work for a nice hotel, it's Sheraton Maria Isabel in La Ciudad de Mexico. But I need the English. So I came here to Minneapolis, and I live in Lake Street since 1982. So I see the changes in the whole avenue. I work in different restaurants all over the Twin Cities. My last job was prom catering. I worked for them for 10 years. And after that, I hear about a project on Lake Street, the first Mercado Central, the first Latino market in Lake Street. So, and they were looking for restaurants. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh, what a great opportunity. Maybe I should apply.
I'm the guy, right?
Yeah. So I apply, and they want 5 restaurants in that space, and you have to come out with a menu. So I thought, well, I know everybody's going to do like enchiladas, tacos. So I thought, why not tortas? A lot of people, they didn't know what tortas are. Like in South America, tortas are cakes. But in Mexico, they're sandwiches. So I thought, I'm going to make my menu about tortas. So I thought to do gourmet Mexican sandwiches. So I applied, and like 25 restaurants apply, and they choose me. I was one of the 5. So I was so lucky that they choose me. So I opened Mercado Central in 1999. That was my first location. And it was so successful because in South Minneapolis, the Latino population was growing. And it was the only Mexican market in that time, so it was really busy, very busy. And I was still working for Prom Catering in that time. Before that, I know I'm gonna open a restaurant, so I called my sister. My sister lives in Mexico City. She's business administration down there. So I called her. I said, "You wanna come and help me to open a restaurant, be my partner?" And she said, "Yes, why not, right?" So she came over, and she's my partner since then. She does all the financials and the money, because I don't know anything about that. I know about food, but she does all the economic things.
So, Manny, tell us how you then located or relocated into the new Midtown Global Market, because that happened in 2006.
Okay.
You moved into there.
Yes. So, like I said, I opened in 1999, so Mercado was so busy. 2 years later, I opened in Lake and 27, across the street, just right there. Yep. And I was there from 2002 to 2007. And then I opened Midtown Global Market in 2006. Okay. So I have 3 locations in Lake Street. I didn't want to go anywhere else. I love this avenue,
So, okay, so this is how we arrived we get to 2020. What happened in 2020 while you're located, your location there in the Midtown Global Market? What did your restaurant experience?
Okay, so I was, that day I was at home, and one of my employees called me, one of my girls, they say, "Manny, I hear there is a big protesting in the police station right here." So I was watching TV. Usually I was watching CNN, and I saw the protest. So and they told me, I said, "Well, the market said we got to close because they don't know what's going to happen." So I told, "Well, just wait a little bit. I'm watching the news, and it's just people just protesting. I don't think nothing is going to happen, just protesting." And then the night came down, and that's when I started seeing, oh my God, hell break loose. So yeah, they closed Midtown Global Market.
And also you were already suffering, business was suffering because of the pandemic.
Oh yeah. Well, I can tell you a little bit about the pandemic. The governor told us, like, okay, every business has to close. So I remember Midtown Global Market has a meeting and say, okay, we got to close maybe for a week, 2 weeks. You guys want to be open just for deliveries or pickup? A lot of business in Midtown Global Market, they say, well, no, we're going to close. They thought, well, we wait for 2 weeks and see what happens. I didn't want to close because I said no. Because people, where they going to go? Or, at least they can pick up their food or I can deliver. So I was there, probably like 2 business there, nobody else. And, we were there for, not 2 weeks. It was months and a year. So I was.
And so we know that there was significant damages to many businesses. Windows were broken, fires. Did you sustain damage, or did a lot of your neighboring?
No. That day, somebody sent me a video when they broke the windows in the Midtown Global Market, and I see people coming in. And the next morning, I came over, and I still see cars on fire. And I went to my place. A lot of business, they were looted, The good thing about that is like Midtown Global Market has a security people because Alina is there. So somehow they contained the people, but they did a lot of damage. In my place, it was a lot of food all over, and they stole my tablets, cashiers. So it was really bad. So.
And as we look at today, many businesses did not return, did not reopen, did not come back. And so what is your make on those who did not return, were not able to reopen?
I think because the pandemic first, they thought they would be back in 2 weeks, but it didn't. So a lot of them, they decide like, why come back? Everything is closed. So, and there's another thing. We have a lot of help from government, like PPL, just to keep, they gave us money just to keep our employees, just to work. And I use that money just to do that, just to survive. But a lot of those businesses, they didn't do that. So, it was hard for them. Obviously, the employees that work in those restaurants, they didn't come back. They find other jobs or something. So, yeah, we closed a lot of business in the Midtown Global Market.
And how is business for you today?
Oh, today is wonderful. Because I was there. Really, to tell you the truth, I never closed. I mean, I was there. Even when we closed, I was there serving the community. We have apartments upstairs. So I thought, where are they going to go? So, so I was there, and it's very good. Thank God. Yeah.
Thank you, Manny.
Thank you.
And Elias, let's bring you in here. You probably heard some themes in what Manny just shared, but tell us your story. I know that you had just opened Seward Pharmacy in 2019, I believe. How did that come about, opening your own a pharmacy?
Well, I've lived a few other states. I lived most of my life in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. And right after that, I went to school in California. And literally, I kind of made a triangle and then just came here to Minnesota, Minneapolis, of all places. So, and then I say, this is the best place to, work. I graduated as a pharmacist over there. I got my pharmacy in California, in Sacramento. And then once I start here and with my wife, and I convinced her and tried to open the business, and I finally did, and we opened the business in September of 2019.
And was the community thrilled to have you there?
I believe so. I believe so. At that point, yes. And I was doing my best, to kind of garner any support that we can. It was right after that, COVID came. You can tell how business was struggling. We're one of the lucky one, during that time, because healthcare provider, we were able to open and continue business.
I remember seeing video of the damage that your building experienced.
Right.
It was destroyed. You had.
Right.
Well, tell us about it. There was during the civil unrest, broken windows, a lot of items stolen.
Yeah,
Describe it.
At that point, we lost almost everything. We lost everything that we built. And I looked at my wife and I said, I know I drag you into this, but I promised her that it's Minneapolis, we'll be back. So this is the city I believe in.
Why did you feel that? Because you had been shown love prior to
Absolutely.
the pandemic?
Absolutely. This is Lake Street where immigrants come and thrive, where you feel welcomed, where you feel home, and even if you lose everything, there are people in Minneapolis that keep you up. The silver lining always that just makes it true to you, and I do believe that our neighbors that came to bring us up and uplift us to where we are right now, and they keep on supporting us. So it was the most difficult time for all of us, Lake Street looks like down there, but right now thrives. And I believe that, and because of the city of Minneapolis, the people, the folks in Minneapolis are the most amazing people, and that's what keeps us going, where you feel welcome as an immigrant, where you feel home, But it's the most difficult time. To give you a story, right after our pharmacy got break-in, and the next day, the next morning, we gather everything, and then we try to clean up.
Wasn't there a fire set in the office?
Absolutely. So the part of this pharmacy was burned down, and then right after we clean up, we went and protest at George Floyd Square. So, because people are protesting for something very important, So, and we're a part of it too, So
this is a lot to happen to experience in your first year of opening. What has the recovery been like for you?
So recovery, we were lucky enough, to be honest with you. We're doing okay now, and we kind of progressively we're doing much better now, than when we reopened. We reopened a year after September of 2020, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the date. So we reopened again, after we closed, after the looting and after all the destruction. So the recovery has been much better now for us. But to be honest with you, there are so many businesses. I think Lake Street can attest to that. Lake Street Council can attest to that. There's so many businesses were not able to open. They still struggling. They were not able to open their door, and that is what we have to fight for. As a business owner,
So you talked about volunteers coming to help you clean up, but who else helped you? Did anyone provide you with grants? Did you get a break,
Right.
a financial break in any way?
Absolutely. Lake Street Council, one of the pillar of our Lake Street, which help us, bring this business up. The African development, folks.
African Economic Development Solutions of Minnesota?
Yes. And I had one of my patient came us and gave us almost $1,000 just to help us reopen.
A patient gave your
Yes.
donation.
Yes. So that's what
What do you think
kept
that was
us
about?
going.
People wanted you. They wanted you to come back. They wanted you to know.
I'll never want us to come back, because if you can imagine that during that time, it was the most difficult time for all of us. It was the most difficult time, for our neighbors. I've lived a couple blocks from George Floyd Square, and everybody worried. And our neighbor really want us to come back and reopen our business. And I thought about, am I going to come back and reopen this business and then go through this again? And I say, if I don't do it, who will come back and do it? Because it's incumbent on us, all of us, to just come back and reopen and keep this going as a society. That is what I believe. And Lake Street is very, very important, as an immigrant, as a minority, the most vibrant street that you can find in Minneapolis. And the world is watching us. That's the fact.
And you're a business owner, but this is also your community that you're living, where you're raising your child.
Absolutely. I have a 2-year-old that I can tell a story at some point in life that what I've done. What I have done my best to bring back Lake Street and do my best in life to raise her in general, So it's what we do in our life, and you do your best what you can, not for yourself, for your community.
This is a good place to bring you in, Yusra. You're with the Lake Street Council. And for people who are not familiar with Lake Street Council, tell us about the history of that group and really how it has changed so much in the last 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. Lake Street really started off with just 4 people, and it grew into a team of 11 now because of that. I think specifically during that time of the murder of George Floyd, it was go time, and we use a word a lot, triage. We had to really apply triage to all the small businesses in the area. So I don't think Lake Street Council expected to grow, that tremendously, expected to have all these add-ons, expected, to really deal with this type of situation. So
And I remember the headlines that money poured in. I think you all raised $12 million in just a matter of days.
Yeah.
As part of the fundraising effort.
Yeah.
And so was that overwhelming?
Absolutely. I mean, so we had our We Love Lake Street initiative where we raised $12 million. And I'm still amazed by how that happened. And it was really overwhelming at the time. I was a board member, actually. And I just remember just like reading all like the emails and being a part of the meetings and being like, what the hell is going on? But because of that is really why I think I transitioned into wanting to put my foot in and helping be a part of this difference, because of all of the amazing things that Lake Street Council was able to offer to the community and small businesses.
So remind us in detail, what are some of the things that the Lake Street Council did do to make sure that the recovery would happen, and that also that it was equitable?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, during the time, as you know, like buildings are displaced, buildings are being burned down. You know, building owners have lost everything that they could imagine, everything that they built. And, you know, like Ilyas said, these are immigrant-owned businesses. I mean, they've left war-torn countries to build here. And so we really had to start from scratch. And that could be anything from figuring out how we could help replace their inventory, you know, help replace their equipment, build, you know, their exteriors, their interiors, figure out their insurances. A lot of businesses, you know, we're just like missing so many things. And I think we had to figure out whatever corner that we could help assist in, we had to do it, and we had to do it fast, immediately. There was no waiting for, you know, applications and weeks and months. Like, it was like, no, this is like go time, like right now. And so, and you know, we at the time, Lake Street Council hired contractors because, I mean, it's an impossible job just for a few people to do. And so we had to reach every corner that we could.
And I have to believe that just the emotional despair. So was that helpful, just knowing that Lake Street Council existed, that somebody was there on the ground, recognizing that the help needed to come now? Did that give some people incentive to stay with it?
Absolutely. I think, you know, once again, a lot of these businesses are, you know, immigrant-owned businesses, and Lake Street Council board staff represented the community. So, you know, we had to find Spanish-speaking helpers. We had to find people who can speak the language of Somali-speaking. And we had to just let them know we're here for you. And so I think it was a really good way to like highlight, because representation is a really important thing.
Of course, as we mentioned, as we know, not all businesses along Lake Street were able to rebuild, to reopen. What's your understanding of why some businesses moved elsewhere or closed for good?
You know, unfortunately, 12 million sounds like a lot, but it's nothing at the end of the day. Not everyone could get supported, and a lot of businesses were not able to get back up on their feet. And a lot of businesses were burnt to the ground. I mean, up until this day, there's, you know, spaces that are still just gone right across the street here, you know, that haven't just, you know, cherished. And unfortunately, it wasn't anything that could be done for at the time.
Andy, let's turn to you for another story of recovery, Redesign. You're with Redesign, and it has really been deeply involved in the restoration of the Coliseum, which is a really cool project that involves several businesses in one building along East Lake Street here. So let's go back again to 2020. What happened to this building, the Coliseum? What happened at that time?
Yeah, so the Coliseum building is also just about a half block from here. It's an 85,000 square foot building built over the course of many years, starting around 1917. It's hosted it's been a center of the community for a long time. It had a ballroom, it's had restaurants, offices, bowling alleys, just about you name it. It's been in that building at one point in time. It had a Hennepin County clinic at one point as well. And that building suffered pretty significantly in the uprising, and was broken into a number of times, suffered 3 really significant fires during the unrest. Yes, significantly. So there was a Denny's location, which some folks remember, in that building on the corner, had a really substantial fire. There was a restaurant on the opposite end of the first floor, Mama Safia's, had a fire so hot that a metal walk-in cooler incinerated, basically completely gone. So the first floor of the building was pretty much destroyed from fire. The second story of the building had really significant smoke damage. And then the sort of miraculous thing, for a long time you walked around the third floor and you almost wouldn't have known anything had happened to the building. It was such a well-built, strong concrete frame building that even in that sort of intense damage that happened, so some parts of it were okay. So the property owner at the time looked at that building and essentially determined, we're just going to tear it down. This is a total loss. My understanding is they got a full insurance payout that the building was completely unsalvageable. And Redesign is an organization. We've existed in South Minneapolis for about 54 years now. We're a geographically based nonprofit developer, and we've worked in commercial real estate for a long time, identifying projects that other parts of the market wouldn't take on. And this was one when all the damage happened and many of the buildings in this area burned. Our team went out and really started assessing what are those critical properties where our small businesses have existed that are going to be potential catalysts for the community, and rebuilding, both from sort of a physical standpoint, but also from a sense of hope and where there's potential to really kind of show the community progress. And in that assessment process, we identified probably 20 high priority sites and started making calls to building and property owners, identifying what the opportunities were, and started a conversation with the owner of the Coliseum building at that time. And they were like, oh, we're going to tear it down. We're going to sell it as vacant land. And our staff said, can we take a look?
Redesign stepped in and said, no,
Yeah.
we're going to save it.
Can you hold on for a little bit? So we had a team that went in. We, on our dime, brought in some consultants, started doing some analysis, brought in an engineering firm that was expert in sort of post-fire structural evaluation, and they said, this building can be salvaged. So we worked with a lot of partners, a lot of our funding partners, the city and LISC and others, put together a package to acquire the building and purchased it. So that, essentially taking that into community hands, and then worked to really put together a project that was community-led. So if we thought about rebuilding the physical structure, we also wanted to start shifting who owns property in the neighborhood, who makes decisions about property, and who can really benefit from real estate. So we've had, small businesses in the community, community ownership, and diverse property ownership that wasn't always necessarily, who own these larger structures. So this was an opportunity for Redesign then to really put together a team of folks who were from the community, interested in being part of our team, and then putting together a really complicated financing structure. So we brought in a number of BIPOC businesses as partners. So they are going to both be tenants in the building, but also co-own the building with us. And we
I'm
put
going to pause there. Say that again.
We've got a number of partners in this project where we are going to we've now purchased the building and brought them into the ownership structure. We've financed this together, and these are going to be BIPOC-owned businesses that their businesses are in the building, but they also own the entire building.
So the Coliseum will reopen as a Black-owned building.
Yes. Yes, so
Right.
Redesign will be a part of that ownership structure to start, and due to some, fun things like federal rules around new markets tax credits, we're going to stay with those folks in the partnership for a period of time, but then after 7 years, we're going to get refinanced out, and they're going to own that building solely, so we can be a catalyst to property going into community ownership and having our businesses own the property they're in.
All right. So the staff at NPR News talked to a lot of people as we researched this conversation, business owners, stakeholders, and a theme that kept coming up was the need for more business owners to own their own buildings. And so Redesign, you have a long history of doing this development work. Andy, talk about what it would take for some of these business owners to own their own buildings, because I guess you really have to get creative with the financing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Why don't we see more of that?
There's a lot of different parts. I think, my kudos to our small business owners. We work with them all the time. Redesign does a lot of work directly helping businesses. We also, like Lake Street Council and a lot of the other partners on Lake Street, do a lot of direct-to-business technical assistance. So we work with businesses to assist with, small renovations and things like that. But what you see a lot of the time is business owners are so focused on the business they're doing that assembling financing, and really just thinking through all the nuance of, purchase price and agreements. And if it's a multi-tenant building, now all of a sudden you're a landlord and you've got tenants and leases and all sorts of other complexity that adds to what you're already having to do with your own business. But and the role we're playing here in Coliseum is we can really set up a situation where we can create a structure that allows business owners to be a part of that ownership group, participate in the wealth building potential of real estate, but also lower some of those barriers by bringing our own expertise in real estate development, our relationships and expertise in assembling financing, and then we can really do this jointly with those shared goals of community ownership.
All right, if you're just joining us, welcome. You are listening to an NPR News In Focus conversation called Stories Behind the Storefront, recorded in front of a live audience at the Hook and Ladder in Minneapolis. We're talking with business owners and leaders of community groups about how Lake Street has fared 3 years after George Floyd's murder, when much of it sustained significant damage. My guests are Manny Gonzalez, the owner of Manny's Tortas, which is inside Midtown Global Market on Lake Street, as well as Elias Uso, the owner of Seward Pharmacy, also on East Lake Street. Yusra Mohammed is with us, a business advisor at the Lake Street Council, and Andy Hessness is here, executive director of the Community Development Corporation called Redesign. Now, since this discussion is called Storefronts, or rather Stories Behind the Storefront, we also want to share a few more experiences of Lake Street businesses and organizations, and this time we can do it via video. The first short story you're going to hear and see for our live audience is from Barlin Kadia, the owner of Barla's Boutique. Let's listen.
I've been here for 8 years, Lake Street. It's beautiful, mashallah. We have all diversity people coming through. We closed the COVID-19 with George Floyd. It hits us really bad. And we didn't get that much money. Even you apply PP loan, they won't give you because you have to have that much employee. I think 3-4 months we have we just paid up the rent our pocket. There was no business going on. And we lost a lot of customers. They don't want to come this area. 2 times they come in inside to have a guns. I have to be here 7 days because I'm scared for that if I hire somebody they can kill. We need more police to be involved. Yeah, 42 is fine because she's tall. You can go try it on. Every night I have to go with the customer, make sure they're okay. They're calling me, we're scared, are you scared, are you scared? You have to find another location, this is not good for you. I said, you know why, I've been here for a long time, it's not easy to move somewhere quickly. It takes time. This one, let me see. No, too light. I like Lake Street, honestly. As long as we get more safe, I think it's the best place to be. I like it. I've been here 8 years.
I'm trying to do that. Thanks, everybody. Was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you, Ma'an. Anytime, Ma'an. We're welcome.
Yes.
Ayun, Ma'an.
Now, you heard Barlin say there a couple of things that we heard from other business owners. First, that PPP loans weren't accessible to them. And Yusra, there at Lake Street Council, did you hear that from a lot of people, that they could not get the loans that they needed?
Absolutely. We heard that all the time. And I mean, unfortunately, there was a lot of disparities and gaps between that. I mean, there was also just the lack of knowledge of like how to get the PPP loans. It was hard for a lot of business owners directly to, get in contact with someone at the bank or really be educated. So there was a lot of just missed opportunities, unfortunately, and a lot of people were eligible for it, but just missed out.
And so as an example of how some of these programs just don't work.
100%. I mean, the PPP loan, it had its own interesting structure for sure. It wasn't, if you don't understand, once again, these are immigrant-owned businesses, so English is their second language, and someone who's even English is their first language, it's hard to understand these applications, these lengthy process, how do you get it, and so it was really unfortunate that there really wasn't, a better process for these business owners.
And Manny, we also heard Barlin talk about customers and other people saying that they were scared to come to the Lake Street area. Did you hear that people were scared to come to the area, and do people still say that to you?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Are people, do you hear that? Yeah?
Yeah, they do, and it's just amazing. I live in Egan, and people around there, I tell them where my business is, and they They say, oh, Lake Street? I say, come on, it's the best avenue in Minneapolis. And yeah, but that's the truth. A lot of people don't feel safe to come to South Minneapolis. But I think it's like the misconception about the area. I tell you, I've been here for so many years. And I think it's a beautiful avenue, a lot of diversity, and that's the beauty about it. Then you can see all kinds of people from all over the world, And I was talking with when we open Midtown Global Market, I said we have to make this avenue a tourist destination. And I think it's getting there because I got a lot of customers and they come visit and they come and they say, where you come from? Oh, Colorado, Los Angeles, and they come to see their families and they come to Lake Street because it's so diverse and all kinds of opportunities. Food, the food is unbelievable. So, but yeah, there is a lot of misconception that Lake Street, they feel afraid to come.
And Elias, I know you live in the community, and a lot of your customers are locals, but do you hear that in conversations with folks who live in other parts of the metro area, other parts of the state, that they're afraid to come to Lake Street?
There is one concern, especially when it comes to drug, where people get some kind of drugs that laced with fentanyl, where the pharmacies across the street, there's a lot of drug exchange. Those kind of stuff is something we have to, work as a community. And I've actually passed out some Narcan for folks that got overdosed. So there is those kind of concern on Lake Street that we have to address. We have to work together. Drug overdose is a main issue that we all have to be concerned. As a pharmacist, it's one of my main concerns. I get a knock on the door when someone get passed away on the street because of overdose. So those are the stuff that really scares me more than any other crime, to be honest with you. So.
All right, let's watch another story. This one features Mustafa Hashish, the owner of the Moroccan goods shop Dar Medina in Midtown Global Market. Let's listen.
We are on Lake Street. The market's called Midtown Global Market. I am Mustafa, the owner of this small business called Dar Medina. We have leather work, we have rugs, carpets, we have jewelry, all handicrafted. We have cloth, Moroccan traditional cloth for ladies, for men. First it was COVID, and then the murder of George Floyd. Good seeing you though. Thank you so much. I mean, for me, I don't know a lot of things about grants or support or whatever they call it. For me, the big support I need is customers to come.
And I didn't really even plan on buying a rug, but they're so gorgeous.
Lake Street, it's very wonderful neighborhood. So you go with this one here?
Yes.
Good choice. I mean, everywhere in the world there is places good and not sometimes. But here people, they are trying to make it more nicer, and I don't know why people get scared. Thank you. Good
Bye-bye.
seeing you. I appreciate the support. All Lake Street, there is many things. Cultural, food, clothes, a lot of things good to visit and to share. Just coming in, and we hope to see more people here in the market. And promise you, you won't get disappointed.
I want to share a story that Mustafa shared with our producer. He said that grants from the Neighborhood Development Center and Midtown Global Market helped him stay afloat during those first few months of the pandemic when he had to shut down completely. And he was so grateful for the support that he asked if he could send some grant money to his suppliers in Morocco, who were also suffering greatly from the global shutdown. And so he was really determined to pass on the help that he received. And Manny, I think you have a story similar to that. I know that a GoFundMe was created for your business,
Yep.
and you had a little hesitancy about that in the beginning, but it what did it do?
Yeah, it wasn't my idea. It was my sister kids, my nephew and my niece, because we didn't know what to do. It was very scary because, well, no money, no customers. And they construct the GoFundMe thing. And it was so amazing because I didn't want to do it. I don't like to ask for money, you know. And we raised $35,000. So, yeah, done.
That money at that time, what were you able to do with that? What did that do?
We play the suppliers, you know, like the food. We play the suppliers. We pay the rent, employees to keep it afloat. And then we give some money to one of the telephones company on Lake Street. We give them $5,000 from that money.
Neighboring business.
Yeah, just to help him out too, because we hear about he lost everything too. So we give him $5,000 from there, from that money. Yep.
Yusra, does that sound familiar to you as you talk to other business owners along Lake Street?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most beautiful part about all of this, even though it was such like a negative downtime, the beauty of it all was like this really sad event brought everyone together, united every community. I'm talking about from every culture. And I think that was really the best part, was watching everyone help each other. I know I've seen many businesses giving food to their neighboring businesses, you know, and or even like during the riots, like watching over someone else's business, like they were taking shifts because someone needed to sleep, or, you know, a mother needed to feed her child, or whatever the case was. So I think that was the best part, was watching how everyone really supported each other during this time.
And I'm guessing too, a sharing of information, like this was my experience with insurance, and here's some advice on how to navigate.
Yes, absolutely. Whether it came to insurance, even the GoFundMes, we saw a lot of that. And GoFundMe, I mean, I think everybody saw, like, there was, and it was really the younger generations that were helping, like the kids that were starting these GoFundMe. And it really helped because sometimes like insurance and grants really couldn't cover everything. And so people coming together and GoFundMe, anyone from anywhere in the nation can help donate. And we were really at the global eye at the time. So it was really important. Social media played a huge effect to that. So it was really cool to share all the resource informations.
And anything you can add? It sounds like you also were seeing, even in all this destruction, community being built and a sharing and helping of one another.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a commercial property owner, so we have about 7 commercial properties where we have tenants, and just incredible to support many of them, and then watch them support each other and support the community. So, you know, we had organizations like De Nord Craft Spirits, which is a tenant in our building just a couple blocks from here on 26th and Snelling. They had founded a nonprofit to support other entrepreneurs launch. That organization pivoted and became a community food shelf. They started, like many of the distilleries, not being able to necessarily produce product in the same way, started making hand sanitizer and sharing that across different organizations. So there's so many examples of that, but it was one of those moments where the community just came together in so many ways, and we saw our business community really step up.
Our final video tells a slightly different story. McGizzy is an organization that serves Native American youth, and it was housed in a building that burned down in the 2020 uprising. It's taken longer than they'd like to return to Lake Street, but they are now hard at work on a new building in a new location. Let's listen to Teddy Gray Owl explain.
We're a nonprofit. We've been around since 1977, and our goal was to make Native American students successful. Unfortunately, our building was one of them that burnt down during the riots around the killing of George Floyd. We had to find new space, and we started searching, and we came across this building here. Here's going to be our kitchen, and then in front of that is our large community room that also houses our after-school programming as well, too.
This is the Weegoob. That's how you'd say it in Ojibwe.
Hope Flanagan. She's with the organization Dream of Wild Health, and she's going to teach our students today about what wild plants we use as medicines here.
Weegoob has all sorts of gifts. If you don't know what your gift is yet, hang in there. It can be revealed. It's just like the plants. You might go like, well, I don't know what plant that is. That doesn't have any gift that I can see. This plant has all kinds of gifts. You could use this dogwood for making your herbal tobacco.
Dream of Wild Health and McGizzy have been partners for many years.
So these flowers are some of the best you can get for pollinators. They're just making me happy.
We could probably do a whole show on all the inspiring things that Migizi does. It's part of a long history of this cultural corridor being a home for Native Americans and for immigrants. But Migizi still missing from Lake Street. It took them 9 months to find that new building and even more time to raise the capital to overhaul it. And Yusra, I know they're not alone. What about the organizations or businesses that didn't reopen, like groups like this? Tell us more about what happened to some of them. Did they move to other places? Have they come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, I think, had different stories. Some did move to other places. I know, like places like Mall of America stepped up where they provided the community commons for displaced businesses around the George Floyd Square or anyone that was displaced to provide free like rent for like 6 months or whatever the case was. Or they had to move cities, and some of them, unfortunately, had to permanently close. And that's why it's really important. It's 3 years later, but we're still fighting for the recovery of Lake Street. And we still hope and wish that these businesses come back. They want to come back. This is still their home. They still live here. And this is where they feel like that they would thrive, and they will thrive. And I think it's really important that we continue to find ways that we can support these small businesses in helping them come back.
And so for my final question, I kind of want to start about what's next. The conversation so far, I mean, to me, has felt very hopeful, but I know there's still a lot of work to be done, particularly when you look at equity for the businesses in this area. So, Andy, what do you think are the top challenges? What do you see that will be a challenge for development, and can development happen in new ways?
Yeah, and I think that's really the model that Redesign is pursuing is how do we take this process of real estate, something that has built our cities over many years, but use that structure and that system of finance and construction in a different way, and really change who benefits from real estate. The challenge we have in front of us is, in particular, really right in this area is we had significant damage, and we have, as we've said earlier in the conversation, vacant lots. Those types of properties are very challenging. They're very capital intensive to rebuild. And we've seen, if you look nationwide, other places where significant civil unrest has happened, it takes long-term sustained investment to really build back. I mean, you can still see places where I used to live in Chicago for a time. In North Lawndale, you can see where the neighborhood commercial corridors that were burned after Martin Luther King was murdered. So if we don't, as a community, step up, we may see these scars for a long time. So that's the challenge in front of us. And I think we've seen programs at the state, like the Deed Main Street program, that thought about investing in our real estate. That we really need to see more of in a pretty significant legislative session. We didn't see any investment this year in the rebuilding of the structures. We had great investment in the businesses, and we're really grateful for that support. But where are those businesses going to be? What are the structures they're going to be in? And how can we work as community then to rebuild the community and the buildings where our small businesses will grow and thrive in ways that really bring in many of those property owners, but also just community organizations and other community-minded investors into the ownership of real estate. So we've got some big challenges here, just in this general area. We're working in coalition with a number of folks, support from the Lake Street Council, support from LISC and others, to really provide some wraparound service to emerging developers, and trying to think about ways that folks who are new to the real estate development space can be supported. So in addition to doing our own real estate development, Redesign provides advising to new developers. The City of Minneapolis has a program called the Developer Technical Assistance Program. That's been a fantastic way for us to be able to have the time as a nonprofit to really invest in teaching the skills we have in real estate development, bringing that next generation of folks from community community and really much more diverse cohort of developers into the space. And then we've got a lot of partners like LISC, who has their Developers of Color program, and Greater Minnesota Housing and others that have really designed ways that they can create new structures of support and new funding tools. So we're excited and hopeful for some of those. We're hoping the state can help step up and be a partner in that, maybe next legislative session. But all of that really speaks to the need for collaboration and the need for, not saying, oh, the job's done on Lake Street. We're not done. We're still moving. We need some support still, but we can get the job done with some help.
And so it's clear the recovery is going to be long-term, but have you found that some of the institutions and groups and people that step forward to help, who were very generous 3 years ago, are they losing interest?
I wouldn't say, I don't think they're losing interest, no. I think that we continue to be loud and show them that we still need the support. And it's really important to be a voice and continue to be a voice. I think they'll only lose interest if, we dim our lights, and that's not going to happen anytime soon.
What do you see as a big challenge?
I think, the biggest challenge is something, especially that the small business owners is shared, is bringing people back to Lake Street and really letting go of that fear. And I think safety is a huge concern, and the biggest way to, I think, mitigate that concern is the more customers and the more color and the more people that come back to Lake Street, the safer that the community is going to be, just like any other community.
Mm-hmm. Elias, what do you think about, or what keeps you up at night? What worries you about this recovery process? Besides your young daughter, what keeps you up at night?
I'm just afraid to get a phone call from an alarm company, sometimes. That's what keep me out sometime, beside my daughter. But of course, crime and drug issue is the main issue that we've always have to work forward toward to make it a little bit more better. I mean, our location where the pharmacy is right by the bridge, 22nd, and right by the Hiawatha Bridge and Lake Street. It's where a lot of stuff happen. So it's something that as a city, that as a community, that we have to work together to kind of make that area a little bit more better, bring much more help that needed from the city, from the county, and also I kind of forgot to mention one thing. The Hennepin County were very helpful to us. They're the landowner of where the pharmacy is right now. They were able to give us rent free during those difficult times, and I just want to kind of plug that out.
Got a break on the rent.
Yes, break, and then they fixed all the broken windows, and I'm very, very grateful to them. And it's greatness about Minneapolis all the time.
Manny, you've been here a long time, and it sounds like you want to continue to be here for a long time. What do you think is a barrier? What's going to get in the way of Lake Street being able to thrive and be what it has the capacity to be? What do you see as the big challenge?
I think one of the biggest challenges is we need to put a little more makeup to this avenue. And I talked to the Midtown Global Market. I show them pictures. I'm from Mexico City. And, in the cathedral and the government centers, they have illumination to the building. And they told me, I said, we can not put anything in the Sears building because it's a historic building. I said, I understand that. Don't paint anything, whatever. But you can put lighting. And that will make a difference. Sometimes at night when you come out of Lake Street, some parts are dark. So I think that's one of the main things that we should be doing.
A very practical solution, yeah.
Yeah, that's just put lighting and make it pretty, So yeah. And one more thing I want to tell to my friends of the suburbs: come this Saturday. We have open street. See how beautiful it is, Lake Street.
So.
Yep.
Events, so maybe creating also events that invite a wider circle of people to come, and then they have a good experience, they'll come back. You think that's part of it too?
That's part of it, and we're already doing it. Midtown Global Market has events every single week, every weekend. We have schools Then they come and usually it's funny because I do a tour and I talk about the building, I talk the history, and I do a cooking shows too in the Midtown Global Market en español y en inglés, English and Spanish. So.
This has been a fantastic conversation, very enlightening, and I want to thank all of our panelists. We've been talking with Manny Gonzalez, the owner of Manny's Tortas, Elias Uso, the owner of Seward Pharmacy, Yusra Mohammed from the Lake Street Council, and Andy Hessness, Executive Director at Redesign. And a big thank you to all the members of the audience here at Hook and Ladder Theater and Lounge in Minneapolis. Not only did I get to see your wonderful faces, I got to hear your applause. That's been wonderful. Thank you for being here, as well as to the folks at Meet Minneapolis who partnered with us to have this conversation. Also want to thank the Lake Street businesses, Rectangle Pizza and Lancheria Los Amigos, for feeding us before we got started this evening. And to our listeners, look for us next in August, NPR, at the Minnesota State Fair, where we will talk about equity and farming. Until then, enjoy your summer and stay safe, everyone.